Hi, everyone. Allie Vogt, Blanchard Insurance. We're back talking to our president and CEO, Mike Tonsetic, for more insurance market updates. There's been some law changes in regards to replacement cost estimators, otherwise known as RCEs, and what we can and can't do with them. So, Mike, do you want to kind of explain what an RCE is and what the law changes are?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Allie, and
Yeah,
happy
of course.
Friday to you and to all our listeners out there. An RCE is what they call a replacement cost estimate, and it's a report that we use via software in the insurance industry, where we put in specific information about the home, and it can be as simple as anything from the year it was built to the square footage to how large the garage is, and it can get into depth on what type of sink they have in their master bathroom or what kind of tub they have. I mean, it can get really detailed. And what this report was designed to do, and what the software does, is it helps us as insurance agents and the insurance carriers as well determine how much a house should be insured for. And it's based on really 100% replacement costs. So we want to know, as insurance agents and as the carriers, how much should we insure your house for to make sure it's adequately insured. It's very similar to a property appraisal. I mean, it's really doing the same thing. They're trying to determine how much a house is worth on, as far as market value. We're trying to determine how much it costs to actually replace that house. So it is very similar, but it is very different, because when you talk market value, you're incorporating what somebody is willing to pay for a house. You're incorporating, market trends. Is it, down in value? Is it up in value? What is the market showing? On replacement costs, what we are looking at is not how much somebody will pay for a house, but how much it's actually going to cost to rebuild the house. And that factors in a lot of different factors, such as what's the cost of supplies? What are the going contractor rates right now? What does the construction industry look like? And then usually the systems we use are updated on a daily basis. Like right now, because real estate's booming, construction costs are really high, but that's really what it's designed to do. It's just a report that helps us figure out how much we are going to insure a home for.
Okay, and then what are the law changes? What are we allowed to do with it? What aren't we? What changed?
Well, the law, very bluntly and briefly put, is we're not allowed to share this information with any lender, any title, any real estate agents, and most importantly, we're not actually even allowed to share it with our own clients. This is some reform that goes back all the way to when I first got into the industry back in early 2000s, and I started to see this reform starting to happen right around 2006. And the reason for that was because in 2006, loan amounts were astronomical. Homes were selling at record numbers. I remember my own home appreciating by $100,000 in 1 year. It was insane. So what had happened was insurance companies and insurance agents weren't insuring for these loan amounts, and they weren't insuring for these purchase prices because they were so inflated. And they're incorporating in land value and all these other factors that aren't true costs to rebuild your house. So the insurance companies were like, well, we don't want to really insure land and market value because we don't want to over-insure this property as well. Because you got to remember, in the event of a total loss, they're responsible for whatever figures are on that paper. So if it only costs, let's say, $100,000 to rebuild a home, but it's insured for $200,000, well, guess what? If the home completely burns down to the ground, the insurance companies has to pay out that $200,000. So what the bank started asking for in order for their underwriting was for us to hand over these reports. There wasn't really a lot of kickback back around 2006, and it was kind of standard practice where some agents handed over these reports. Now, the insurance companies started firing back saying, well, that's proprietary information. It's our underwriting information. It is we can't share this. This is how we determine rate. And again, we don't want to send this report over and then, to have the banks in the event of a total loss, hold a gun to our heads, based on this report. So there's a lot of back and forth. It's been pushed very heavily by the insurance industry, and not everybody, but a lot of companies. And it's also been pushed very heavily by a lot of agencies, especially here in Florida. And it kind of flew under the radar from a long time. It was kind of like, it's a very gray area again. Is it legal? Is it not illegal? Is it ethical? Is it unethical? Nobody really had a determination. And with all the reform that was on the state Senate floor, the first 6 months out of this year, this one just kind of slipped through at the last minute, and everybody kind of forgot about it. And then it kind of slipped through, and everybody's like, well, what do we do? What are the banks doing? So now the banks are all panicking. The insurance industry is all panicking. How do we conduct business if, basically you have two heads that, are butting right now? And it went into effect on yesterday. So
that really snuck up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your opinion on this? What are your thoughts? How is it going to affect us? How's it going to affect our clients? Anything?
Well, I will say that I think looking at all the peers, our competitors, our agency peers, our colleagues in this industry, it's very, I would say, in a good majority of the companies too, on the homeowner side. This is not the auto companies. Again, this is just the homeowners companies. And pretty much in Florida, we have a lot of domestic homeowners carriers. I think the greater majority, and I'm going to say in the high 90s, is for this. And I try to look at everything from a very unbiased opinion. I try to look at both sides and kind of see where, Blanchard and, where we lay. And the banks, again, on the other side are completely against it. So I look at it and I go, okay, yes, it is proprietary information that the insurance company uses. But what's kind of not transparent is the fact that you have only a certain number of technology vendors who provide this type of software. It's the same thing with claims adjusting. There's Xactimate and a couple others who basically dominate the industry. Same thing on these cost estimators. There's companies like True Value or Property 365 or whatnot. I can't remember that all the names off the top of my head, but there's only a few solutions. And guess what? All these insurance companies subscribe to one. So let's say you have only 3 of these major technology vendors, but you have 60 insurance companies in Florida. I mean, you do the math. 20 companies are using one, 20 companies are using another, and the last 20 are using the other. So is really the information proprietary at that point? That's my question. So and the way I look at it is like, it's not that proprietary if everybody's using the same method and doing it. I think there is a lot of pushback on it, and because from other agencies, because the homeowners insurance industry in Florida has become so commoditized and over commoditized, as we know, over the last couple of decades, where so many agents were out there just because the market was good, soft, they were just sitting there selling price. And when it came to these cost estimators, they were literally like going in and saying, okay, the home was built in 2001, it's 2,000 square feet, clicking a button, whatever number I come up with, I'm just trying to get this through. No matter what. Where we kind of differed was, we're kind of the 1% minority who actually does this, is we actually go in and fill out all the information. We have agents in our office who measure hallways. We have ones who get down to what type of faucet is the master tub using in the master bedroom. Is there, what type of floors? And we really did a great job. And we always wanted to make sure our clients are 100% insured for 100% replacement costs. The last thing at the end of the day is to tell somebody like, hey, you're only getting, instead of $200,000, you're only getting $100,000 because we screwed up on our end and didn't do our job. So we were always confident in doing the job right. So it really didn't worry us. But I think there was unfortunately, a lot of agencies out there who were just selling solely on price. And they didn't want the banks and anybody else to kind of discover that. And so there was a lot of pushback, from that avenue. Now, looking at the perspective of the banks, I completely understand where they're coming from as well, wanting to say, hold us accountable and the insurance industry accountable. Like, hey, are you guys doing your job on your side? Are you making sure that our homes are insured for the right amount, because we sometimes don't see that. So I understand that accountability from the bank side, because you got to remember, I mean, even though the homeowner owns the home, I mean, if there's a note that, you know, the mortgage is 90% of the value of that home, I mean, guess what? The bank basically owns 90% of your home too. So there's a lot of pushback. I think personally there's a lot bigger problems going on in the insurance industry, especially in Florida, whether it is hurricanes, whether it is because of all the hail fraud, litigation, or even most recently the condo collapse in South Florida. I think there's a lot bigger problems than this. I think it's a very simple problem, but it's been blown out of proportion. Again, it's something that a lot of agents have pushed for years, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's going to make that big of an impact. I think people are, like anything in Florida, are going to find a workaround. I think the banks are going to find a workaround in some degree or fashion. Is coming down, because that just always happens in Florida. But in regards to our stance, I mean, of course, you know, we're going to obey the law 100% and the legislation. And unfortunately, we can't provide this information to the clients. We can discuss it with them, but we can't issue these reports. We're talking to all our partners, whether they be in real estate, banking, and title. We're all making sure everybody is on the same page. We're going to be doing some webinars out there with a lot of them, just so everybody understands and everybody's on the same page. Now, if there are existing clients, prospective clients, people who don't know Blanchard out there, and you run into these problems, they can feel free to call us, because we probably know the RCE and the replacement cost estimate system better than anybody else, and we can help make sure we're talking to your lenders so this doesn't hold up your closing for, you know, a report for the next, you know, 2 or 3 weeks to delay your closing. So
awesome. Well, great information. And like Mike said, if anyone has any questions or anything, we are here to help. 407-788-8640. Our personal information is on the screen as well, or you can visit us at blanchardinsurance.com.
absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Allie.